tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Welcome everybody to our second installment of the Foundations in Pāli class. So last time we followed some of Bhante Ananda Jyoti's introductions to the pronunciation of Pāli. Now, before we start on the grammar, which we'll study systematically through an introductory textbook, I wanted to introduce one of the Paritta chants. Paritta chants we translate as protective chants, and these are different kinds of suttas or sections from suttas that are chanted traditionally chanted for various purposes, on auspicious occasions, on sad occasions, when somebody falls ill. So here we have what we call the Khandha Paritta, and it actually is a section from the Khandha Sutta. Khandha Sutta is found in the Vinaya Chulavagga, and it is a sutta that the Buddha recommended that the monks and nuns recite when they're in the forest, sending metta or kind thoughts to the different kinds of creatures there, the different kind of dangerous creatures, to show their good intentions, so as a kind of protection. So the Buddha recommended that the monks and nuns chant this every day as a protection. Now, we're doing it today as a basis in your Pāli vocabulary, because coming into this course, we don't assume that you have any Pāli knowledge. And so you can imagine if you were learning English, for example, with no vocabulary at all, and then you start in learning all of the grammatical terms, it would be quite overwhelming. So if we go through this sutta, it actually displays a number of grammatical forms. It has sections that are written in verse and sections that are written in prose. And it has a number of sort of quite common occurrences, standard phrases that you'll see in different suttas. So if you can memorize this sutta along with its translation, then you'll have a good starting point, a good reference point for some of the grammar points that we'll be discussing later. So I'll go through the sutta step by step, without a detailed discussion of the grammar, with a very simple discussion of the translation. Again, we're following the translation by Bhante Ananda Jyoti. Now, his translation is available in a book called Safeguard Recitals. It's available from his website. Evam me sutang ekang samayang bhagava savatyang viharati jeta vinayana tapindikasa arame. So this first line, it's better if you just memorize it for now. And it is setting the scene for the sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time, the fortunate one was dwelling near Savatthi at Anathapindika's ground in Jeta's wood. Now, this starting Evam me sutang, now this is given by Venerable Ananda. So he's reporting what he heard in the first council, when he recited the discourses there. And so the setting is Savatthi. Now notice there's an ending. So Savatthi is the town, and here it says Savatthiyam. So in Pāli, then the nouns are usually modified by at the end of the word. So here it's indicating it's in or near to Savatthi, and so we'll study that in more detail later. But pay attention to the ends of words, and sometimes there are also prefixes that are added. Jetavane Anatapindikas Arame. So Jetavana is this is a monastery that Anathapindika, the Buddha's chief male lay donor, he is donated for the use of the Sangha, and the Buddha spent many years there. Tena kopana samayena savatiyang anyataro bhikkhu ahina tatto kalakato hoti. So then this is continuing on the narrative. Tena ko panasamayena, we translate as then at that time, Savatyam, near Savati, Anyatro Bhikkhu, a certain monk, Ahina Datto Kalakato Hoti. So Ahina Datto, bitten by a snake, Kalakato is a special phrase meaning died. You can translate it more literally as something like made his time. So then at that time near Savati, a certain monk was bitten by a snake and died. Atuko sambahula bhikkhu yena bhagavate nupasankamingsu. Then a great many monks approached the Fortunate One. So Fortunate One, Bhagava, this is one of the common epithets of the Buddha. It's probably the most common that you'll see in the suttas. Now, also this word atiko, these particles can be very difficult to translate. Sometimes here it's just then, so atiko, then. And here we also have another grammatical pattern, yena bhagava ten upasankamingsu. So this yena and tena are going together, and it means to go towards something. So again, we'll discuss these in more detail later. Just so you're paying attention to them as you read the sutta, as you memorize the sutta. Then later it will click when we learn the actual rules. Upasankamindva bhagavantang abhivadedva ekamantang nisidingsu. And after approaching and worshipping the Fortunate One, they sat down on one side. So here we have two dva forms, idva, Pasankamidva, abhivadedva, so idva and edva. Now this is another grammatical pattern, and here it's used to indicate things that are happening in a certain order. So it's a temporal order. So if you see a series of these dvas, you know there's a series of actions happening. Usually there could be other meanings there. And here the word that they translate, worshipping, abhivadedva, this is this bowing down 3 times and putting your hands up in Anjali. Ekamantang nisidingsu. So now here, they sat down to one side, ekam antang to one side, nisidingsu. And so then this is the plural because it's a group of monks. So if it were only one monk, we would have a different ending. But because it's a group, it's ingsu. Again, we'll study that in more detail later. Ekamantang nisina kote bhikkhu bhagavantang etadavochung. So again, so now they've repeated this ekamantang. So to one side, nisina. So they've sat. So after they sat to one side, so while sitting on one side, those monks said this to the Fortunate One. Now, again, the ending here, avochung, means because it's plural, it's going together with bhikkhu, with those monks, with a group of monks. Idbante savatiyam manyatro bhikkhu ahina datto kalakatoti. Here, Reverend Sir, near Savati, a certain monk has been bitten by a snake and has died. So idda here, so you should really know this word. It's quite a common word. And Bhante also, they call all the monks Bhante now. But during the Buddha's life, they would only call the Buddha Bhante. So he's translated it as Reverend Sir, but it's just a term for a respected teacher. And this is also something common that you'll see when you're reading the suttas. The monks, first the sutta will say what happened, and then whoever was there will come and report the events to the Buddha verbatim. So you'll hear the situation twice in the sutta. Nahanuna so bhikkhave bhikkhu chattari ahirajakulani mettena chittena puri. Surely, monks, that monk did not suffuse the 4 royal families of snakes with a mind full of friendliness. Now, here this surely is that Nahanuna is translating as surely. Some different grammar points here, but we'll skip them over for now. Sachehiso bhikkhave bhikkhu chattarya hirajkulani mettena chittena pareya. Nahiso bhikkhave bhikkhu ahina tatto kalam kareya. 4. If monks, that monk had suffused the 4 royal families of snakes with a mind full of friendliness, that monks would not have been bitten by a snake and died. So we have a repeated word with a different form here. So in the sentence above, in the section we just read before that, we had mettena chittena pari. So this pari is a past tense, and then here we have mettena chittena pareya. So then if he had suffused, so we have a different grammatical form for a different meaning, and we'll study these forms in detail later. They have several uses, but here we have this word in a few forms in close proximity. And also, naiso bhikkhave bhikkhu hina datto kalam kareya. So before we had kalakato hoti, and so it has died, and here we have kalam kareya, would have died. So we have the same phrase in a different tense. Katamani chatarya hirajakulani. What are the 4 royal families of snakes? Verupakang ahirajakulam, Herapatang ahirajakulam, Chabhyaputang ahirajakulam, Khandha gotmakang ahirajakulam. So snake here, ahi, and we have a compound, so it becomes ahi rajakulam, so royal family of snakes. Again, this is something that we'll have to deal with slowly. Making compounds in Pāli can be a bit complicated, but please pay attention to the sentence before, katamani chattari ahirajakulani. So we have plural, so what are these 4? And then each of them individually is ahirajakulam. So ahirajakulani becomes ahirajakulam. So we'll have to deal with this in the coming lessons. Nahanuna so bhikkhave bhikkhu imani chattarya hirajakulani mettena chittena pari. Surely monks, that monk did not suffuse these 4 royal families of snakes with a mind full of friendliness. Sachehi so bhikkhave bhikkhu imani chattarya hirajakulani mettena chittena pareya. For if monks, that monk had suffused these 4 royal families of snakes with a mind full of friendliness, nahiso bhikkhave bhikkhu ahina datto kalam kareya, then that monks would not have been bitten by a snake and died. So one of the reasons why this is a good sutta is you have quite a lot of repetition of the vocabulary, which many suttas do, but this one is coming from our book of protective chants or Parittas, so it's something that you might hear. Anujanami bhikkhave, I allow you monks. Now remember, I mentioned that this sutta was actually from the Vinaya, and within the monks' rules and the nuns' rules, they have allowances and prohibitions. And so this is an allowance here, Anujanami bhikkhave. Imani chattari ahirajakulani mettena chittena paritum. To suffuse these royal families of snakes with a mind full of friendliness. So this paritung is an infinitive, to infuse. So we had pari, infused, pareya, would infuse, and paritung, to infuse. Attagutya attarakaya attaparitayati, to guard yourselves, to protect yourselves, to safeguard yourselves. And at the end of the sentence we have this T, and so that is indicating that direct speech has ended, or a quote from some other sutta has ended. Sometimes also for thoughts they will use this marker. And then we're coming up to another common phrase you'll encounter in the suttas. Idam avocha bhagava idam vadva sugato athaparam etadavocha sattha. Then the fortunate one said this, and after saying this, the happy one, the teacher, said something more. And now we have the Paritta that we normally chant every day in in the monasteries in many monasteries, in the monasteries in the Pāli tradition and in Nahuyana tradition, and I think also in some of the Thai monasteries they chant this every day. Virupa ke hime mettang era pate hime. I am friendly with the Virupakas, with the Erapatas I am friendly. Chabhyapute hime mettang Khandha Gotama hicha. I am friendly with the Chabhyaputas and friendly with the Khandha Gotamakas. Apadake hime mettang dipadake hime. I am friendly with those without feet. With those with 2 feet, I am friendly. So remember last time Bhante Ananda Jyoti was talking about is a negation. So here it says apadakehi. So this is without feet. It's a negation of the feet, the pada. And di is actually, here it means 2. So dipadakehime. With those with 2 feet, I am friendly. Chadupadehime mettang bahupadehime. I am friendly with those with 4 feet. With those with many feet, I am friendly. So this bahu, remember earlier in the sutta we had Sambhula Bhikkhu, so a number of monks. And here we have Bahu Padehi. So this Bahu means several or many. Mamang apadako hingsi, mamang hingsi dipadako. May the one without feet not hurt me. May the one with 2 feet not hurt me. Mamang chatupado hingsi, mamang hingsi bahupado. May the one with 4 feet not hurt me. May the one with many feet not hurt me. Sabbe satta, sabbe pana, sabbe bhuta chakevala. May all beings, all living creatures, all who were born in their entirety. Sabbe badrani passantu ma kanchi papamagama. May all see prosperity. May nothing bad come to anyone. Appamano buddho, appamano dhammo, appamano sangho. The Buddha is measureless. The Dhamma is measureless. The Sangha is measureless. Pamanavantani saringsapani. Measurable are creeping things. Ahivichika satapadiyunna nabi sarabu musika. Such as snakes, scorpions, centipedes, spiders, lizards, and rats. Katame rakha, katame paritta, patikamantu bhutani. I have made this protection. I have made this safeguard. May all these beings go away. So hang namo bhagavato, namo satanang sama sambundhananti. I revere the fortunate one. I revere the 7 perfect Sambuddhas. So that is the conclusion of the Khandha Sutta. So, as I said, I recommend that before we start the class that you take a week or a few days to memorize the sutta together with its translation. So one way to do that is to include it in your chanting every day. But some people maybe are not chanting every day. Then to just read through it line by line in Pāli and English, maybe once or twice a day. It's also helpful because we come from more of a literary culture than an oral culture. So it's helpful if you write down the words. If you write down the sutta in English together with its translation. I think if you write it down, English and Pāli, 5 or 6 times and you chant it for a few days, you should be able to remember the sutta pretty well. And for those of you who are already chanting it as part of your regular chanting, then I'm sure it will be no problem at all to memorize. So soon we'll start on studying the Pāli grammar. So until then, I hope that your Dhamma practice goes smoothly and that you will be happy, healthy, peaceful, and content, and swiftly attain the peace of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.